That's interesting. Good morning. I'm still not certain how to look into this camera so I get centered. It always looks pretty cockeyed to me. Well, I'm awake in the middle of the morning again. Been focusing on my own stuff lately rather than trying to save the world. My name is Dr. John Taylor Kent. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit that like button. I don't have much of a following here. This message isn't getting out all that well, and it's probably my fault. It's definitely my responsibility. So, I'd like you to share the videos. Sure would like to get some good comments. If there's particular areas and things you would like me to attend to, I'd appreciate the suggestions. I want to tell you who Israel is today. I think that's probably the most important thing. Those of you tuning into this already know who Israel is for the most part, but you can share this with your friends and with others. Israel is not that little postage stamp of a country that is occupying Palestine. They stole that country. They stole that territory. They did it through a program of systemic terrorism against its occupants. It wasn't barren land as they try to pretend it was, that there was nothing growing there and they went there and developed it, and then these other people started to bother them. No, it was a very beautiful area and it was fairly well developed. My God, some of the neighbors, I think Beirut was called the Paris of the Middle East a while back, before all this bombing and all this stuff happened. The folks that are in Israel are not descendants of the man Israel. Now, there's got to be some old folks left here, some people from Israel left, especially in Jerusalem. There's probably got to be a family or two, maybe a dozen that never left that area. So they would be Israelis and Israelites. But that's a residue. It's a small sliver, not even 1%. That's just my guess. Israel was a man. He became known as Israel after he wrestled all night with God. He wrestled on the banks of the Jordan all night and prevailed. I guess Yahweh had to cheat in order to beat him. He touched him in the hollow of his hip and apparently gave him a crippling move. It was a crippling blow to him, and it caused him to limp after that. According to the traditions, the Jews don't eat that particular sinew of an animal in memory of that event. Now, prior to that, his name was Jacob, and he was born Jacob. And so it's kind of an interesting story. I'd like to look into why it's called Jacob, but I think it means deceiver, sad to say. So that throws a little mud in the waters right there, if you will. But we've got to look at these things. We have to be honest about them, and we have to acknowledge limitations, and we have to acknowledge the implications. But the fact is that Israel, when Jacob came back from living over in the territory, I think it was Haran, with his uncle Laban. From Laban, he labored and earned his 2 wives, who each came with their handmaidens. So he ended up having a total of 4 wives. That's right. Multiple wives. And he had several children. 12 boys in particular. 1 daughter that I recall. So Israel means he who rules with God. Doesn't mean he who rules against God, he who rules at God. That little preposition is pretty important. I tossed out that book by Dr. Horney that was based upon those prepositions in psychology, and I wish I'd have kept it. It was a classic. But I had to get rid of books at the time. Maybe I saved that one. Someday I'm going to get those books out. I hope soon. If you want to pray for me, pray that Yahweh guides me, Yahweh protects me. Pray that Yahweh blesses me with the presence of His Spirit. I'd like to improve my lot in life, my housing situation, so I can get things organized and be more functional. So that's a nice prayer for me. Other than that, what you could do for me is buy my Bible. It's the proper name version of the King James Bible. It is the newest Bible, modern English, much improved over the original King James. Sale prices are approximately 1/3 of where they belong. 1/3 the cost of what they really should be. Most of these major publishers will charge you more than $100 for their large print, leather-bound Bibles. And here, we've got something here that's going for like $36, $37 and change. $37, $77 maybe. All I know is at all prices that I get credit for end in 77 cents, and I appreciate the symbolism of that. It's in one of my email addresses as well. You're supposed to forgive 70 times 7. And Cain was marked with a 7-fold curse. And his progeny who killed him by accident decided that he was going to be protected by whoever harmed him was going to be. That was Lamech, and whoever harmed him, let him be cursed 70 times 7 times, I believe is what he told his wives as they encroached upon him to kill his ass because he had killed the patriarch of the family, Cain, and he had killed the 17-year-old son, the boy, and his 2 wives. That's in Genesis. Look it up. The women, they're named. And only women that are very important are named in the Bible. Israel today are the descendants of the man Israel. They're not descendants of a piece of land. They're not descendants of a boundary. And what we have going on there is a little fraud. It's identity theft on the biggest order. You actually have the enemy, and the enemy's children occupying that land illegally. And I will say it's the enemy of mankind. Things have been flipped around quite a bit. So we have to look at things carefully. And in case you're wondering, the United States of America is the great nation that was mentioned in Genesis. And the company of nations would be Great Britain. So, generally speaking, because I'm trying to compare apples and oranges here, I guess, and I'm catching myself realizing that it's a little bit of a conflict there. Anyway, the boys and their children ended up becoming the great nations of Europe and broke into the rest of the world. And right now, all Israelite nations are under attack, severe attack. All of the European nations are Israelite nations. Okay? All of them. And they're under attack right now. Germany in particular. Germany has always been the focus of attack. They were the focus of the wars. Why? Because German means genuine. They are, generally speaking, the Germanic peoples are descendants of Judah. And Judah was supposed to hold the scepter until the return of Shiloh, till the return of Yahshua, the Messiah, Jesus Christ. But the bad guys decided they wanted to rule instead. So they had to get the rest of us up in arms, quite literally and figuratively, against Germany. And if you look, there's a guy named Kaufman who wrote a book, Germany Must Perish. Germany must perish? He wanted to kill them all. And he had a book about that. I have not read the book. But it reveals the intent of those people. Now, where do those people come from? Those people came from Esau. Esau was Jacob's brother, full brother, born at the same time, fraternal twins, not identical. And again, we've got a family feud. We've got a dysfunctional family. You want to read about dysfunctional families and families that are, excuse me. There aren't any more dysfunctional families than those that are in the Bible. So we can say this is all due to a family squabble. Esau became known as Edom. Jacob became known as Israel. Now, when we, or our grandmothers, grandfathers, broke across the Caucasus mountain range into Europe, they called us Caucasians after the mountain range. And basically, people will think that means you're white. Well, a better differentiator is skull type. So skulls are different, and they're definitely inherited genetically. And at this point, just to dispel the racist bullshit, humans appear to me to be hybrids. All of us are just nothing but a bunch of mixes. I know there's people out there, oh no, we can't be mixed. Well, it does talk about the mixed multitude in the Bible quite a bit. And it does not speak kindly about the mixed multitude. It's not fond about the mixed multitude. There's something wrong with a mixed multitude. And one of those problems is you have the descendants of Cain intermingling with the descendants of Adam. And so when we talk about the wheat and the tares and separating the two, it's about impossible. And by the way, none of us knows what we really are. And I don't care whose genetic tests you take. The people that control those norms are not to be trusted. They control most of the societies around the planet, not to be trusted. The history, the educational systems, all of the institutions in America right now are controlled. And we're under attack. And that attack comes basically from the Chi-Coms. They're fighting in every which way they can. They killed Abe. I can't remember the guy's last name, the Prime Minister of Japan. We put our flags, I think everybody around the planet put their flags at half-mast. He was a great man, a man of peace, and he wouldn't allow them to bring those stupid experimental jabs into his country. And I thought maybe the vaccine, well, those manufacturers would have had a reason to go after him. But it turns out that it really was the Chinese that killed that guy. There were only 2 gun deaths in Japan last year, and one being that prime minister. And that they don't have guns in Japan. They're not allowed to have them. But apparently that Japanese fellow that killed him made a homemade shotgun, basically, or a rifle. He made a homemade gun and killed him just a few feet away. Looks like he was mind controlled, and there was chatter on the internet in the hours before the assassination. And I don't know why the average Chinese person was celebrating the death of the former Prime Minister of Japan. If you can figure that out and tell me why the Chinese hated that guy so much, please leave me a comment. I'd like to know your thoughts on that. Israel broke into Europe across the Caucasus Mountains, generally speaking, 3 giant waves. This is when the captivity of Israel, the house of Israel, ended, which is about the same time that the captivity in Babylon ended, about 70 years after they were hauled off. 70 years after they were hauled off by the Assyrians, and they were multiplying, and so there were a great multitude when we broke across the Caucasus Mountains into places that were not lands that were not inhabited. That's what the prophet said. Said we weren't going to be going home. That is the house of Israel, the northern tribes of Israel, and that we would have a bit of amnesia. We wouldn't call ourselves after our father anymore, Israel, but after his father, Isaac, Saxons. And so we went and throughout Europe, Great Britain, and other places. So great Israelite nations, not all are English speaking, of course. Most aren't, but the English speaking ones are notable. And any that is English speaking is basically Israelite. South Africa is Israelite, combination of the British and the Dutch migrated down there. That land was not inhabited, didn't belong to the people that are trying to claim it and claim it was stolen from them. They're a bunch of thieves themselves. They're the thieves, and they've been genociding our people down there for quite a while. The poor Boers. And in case you're wondering, the British built the first concentration camps, not the Germans. And the first concentration camps were made in South Africa for the Boers. They were genociding those people. Okay. Another great Israelite nation was Chile until recently they elected a communist president, this woman who decided to bring in a bunch of Haitians. So the country, they brought in 20%. Chile did some weird things a while back. A friend of mine who migrated down there, she said that they did a thing that wasn't very nice, and that was they killed off all the other peoples so that they could dominate. Chile was a nice country, but it's pretty much down at this point. Argentina, another basically mixed Israelite nation. Canada's a real Israelite nation. United States of America, the great nation mentioned in Genesis. So we are the big boys. We're the big country. We're being taken down. The Chicoms have infiltrated every level of this government, and we have their stooges in our government and in our institutions, especially our alphabet agencies, DHS, which took over our elections the last 2 cycles and still in charge of those elections, so you can expect they'll be manipulated and stolen again. Another nation, great Israelite nation, Australia. Another one, New Zealand. In spite that weird prime minister that they have down there, some people tell me that's a man pretending to be a woman. I don't know. I just know that she seems kind of awkward and very unappealing in some ways. And she's got weird ideas that hurt her own people terribly. So she's definitely a bad boy, a bad individual. Great Britain and its empire was definitely in the Bible as Israelite nation. Ireland, certainly. Ireland is where Zerah settled at, the red hand with the thread around it. That comes right from the Bible. Yes, Jeremiah did leave Israel, and Jeremiah went to Ireland. And guess what? After that, he went to America. He went to the frontier. He went to the wilderness, as it was referred to in the Bible. So his mission was really a big mission. He really did plant at the end. That was probably the most important part of his mission. Well, we're under attack. What are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? You need to sit and read your Bibles. I need to sit and read my Bible. I haven't done too good the last 2 days on that. Been trying to sort out housing and my current motor home, getting it fixed, and others that I've been trying to make deals on, trying to buy, as this economy is crashing, and it's going to keep crashing. This is by design. This was predicted in a eulogy over a rabbi in Russia in 1865, or was it 1868? Tex Mars documented it in his book, in which he said, when they gave that eulogy over that rabbi, that wonderful famous rabbi there of theirs, they said that they would pull the rug out from the economy, from the rest of the world, at a time of their own choosing. And that's what we're living through right now, is they've decided to pull the rug. And it's a multiple pronged attack. It's on biologicals, it's in radio frequency interference, it's in all kinds of weapons that we don't recognize and don't understand. So it's a war that's being waged in secret and by deception. Their father was the father of all lies, and that's who we're fighting against. And so you and I are kind of limited. We can't strike out. We don't have the power. They have the power. However, we get power, and that is by reading our Bibles and living according to it. And then the blessings will return, and Yahweh says he'll step in and fight for us. But he also says that there was a time that if not cut short, all flesh would perish. I believe what it meant by all flesh was all Adam kind will perish. But who knows? It could mean all biped kind, what we call humankind, which I think is kind of a conglomerate of different species, to be honest with you. But maybe it does mean all life on the planet. Maybe it means mammals. Maybe it means everything, reptiles and insects and little tiny bugs. So I just wanted to explain to you who Israel is. Israel is not that little postage stamp of a country. Israel has a chokehold, a stranglehold on the United States of America today. They dominate in our legal system. The Edomites is what they should be called. And they harmed Russia terribly. We allowed them to come to our shores. We allowed them to launch their invasion and the war against the Tsar from our shores, from Manhattan. I think there's laws against that, but they don't abide by the laws. They took us over by getting. We gave them our central bank. We gave them everything. They stole it all. They even sank the Titanic, or what was allegedly the Titanic. Probably was another ship. What was that thing called? Well, there were two ships, and it was probably the one that had been in a collision earlier, and the hull was compromised. Anyway, J.P. Morgan, who funded that great ship so he could trap the bankers who were against the Federal Reserve and kill them. That's the whole purpose of the Titanic. Talk about going down with the ship. We lost a lot with that. That was set up. A lot of things have been set up. A lot of murders happen all the time so that those folks can stay in power. They are murderers and thieves. And we are just taking it, and we're dying. We're getting killed. I don't know how far this has to go before we get pissed off and enraged and in our anger rise up and defend ourselves. But at this particular point, there's no sign that we're even awake. We don't know who we are, and we don't know who the enemy is. But I can assure you the enemy knows who they are. They know who we are. They're jealous as can be, and they want to destroy us. We were never meant, Israelites, were never meant to exist without relationship with Creator Father God Yahweh. We were designed to be in constant relationship with Him so that we would have the blessings. If you read the Ten Commandments, those are basically natural law. They're good common sense. If you read about the curses for disobedience, which are rather lengthy, you'll see our nation, the United States of America today. It even talks about lending and borrowing in those curses. And it talks about wars and losing wars, winning wars. There's the blessings for obedience. And the blessings are about half as long as the curses for disobedience. And it's in the Bible twice. It's in the book of Leviticus and in the book of Deuteronomy. And that's called a double witness, which means Yahweh really wants us to pay attention to this and learn this. You already know this. I think you know most of this, the few of you who are watching. But you need to get the word out because people have to understand who the enemy is. Western civilization, all of it is under attack. Different peoples have joined forces, and they're coming down on us to get us. I don't see how we get out of this. All of those jackasses, those politicians in D.C. are all bought off, almost all of them. There's a handful that are not totally beholden to the Chi-Coms. And it's so bad that every one of our Supreme Court justices gets paid $1 million or $2 million a year from the Chi-Coms to go over and give speeches. You talk about being corrupt. And we've got what? We've got people like Swalwell who are busy in honeypot traps with Chinese intelligence agents, giving them the secrets, and he's still got a seat. He should be thrown out of there. And we still have, the one senator whose chauffeur of more than 20 years was a Chi-Com agent, and she's still up there in high ranking. She needs to be tossed on her ass. So a lot of people want to blame the Jews. Well, when you go down that road, there's problems. And yeah, there are those who say they are Jews and are not. Okay, it says so right in the Bible in Revelations 2:9-3:9. So we know those are the troublemakers, but it's certainly not the Jews at large. As a matter of fact, the Jews at large have been exploited and have been persecuted. However, they haven't been the victims they're claiming to be. There were no 6 million Jews killed in World War II. Might have been 400,000. But according to the American Red Cross figures, it was only 275,000, 285,015, something like that. But according to the German Red Cross numbers, it was exactly 100,000 more, so 385,015. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Anyway, it wasn't 6 million, and it didn't happen. I'm not denying that many were lost, but I think I don't want to minimize the fact that a bigger Holocaust occurred in Dresden, and the best estimate we have is 400,000 men, women, and children, elderly people, were killed, incinerated in a week-long firebombing. That son of a bitch over in Great Britain wanted to do that. And so did our not Jews in the federal government here. They wanted to do that. What a horrible thing to do to those people. And it may have been as many as 600,000. We don't know because the refugees had flooded that town. It had no strategic importance, and it was considered a refuge because all the old buildings that were there nothing was industrial. Nothing was critical to the war. There were no troops there. And then we have a much bigger Holocaust that occurred of the Armenians, 1.5 million to 2 million that were killed. And those beautiful women, those beautiful girls with long hair, naked, hung by crosses, lining the road across the countryside, genocided by what were called the Young Turks, happened to be, I believe, Sabbatean Jews, which is kind of a group of devil worshippers, if you will, just to speak in shorthand. And then There was a big genocide of at least 66 million, probably 100 million in Russia. And those were Christians. And most of those were killed in concentration camps, in the gulags. And they had a lot of weird rituals of bloodletting and orgies with the guards when they did that. And they liked to use knives, and they liked a lot of blood. They wanted real suffering in that. So, and Solzhenitsyn documented that. I haven't read his books. Go read them. It's pretty heavy stuff. He tried to live in New Hampshire. He was very disappointed in the United States of America. We really should have paid more attention to that gentleman, and we really should have asked what was wrong. That might have helped to correct us some. But at this point, we are so far off course, I don't see any correction. I see some really bad times for us. I'm hoping that people will wake up and realize that our media is a bunch of liars, and they're responsible for a lot of deaths in this country. I hope people will wake up and realize that the medical profession is part of the military-industrial complex and has not been on our side for about forever. There's some real serious problems with that. My profession has been used against us. The dental profession, all professions have been turned against us. The attorneys won't tell us the laws, won't tell us the truth about the Constitution and the fact that we're under Uniform Commercial Code rather than under the Constitution. They buy and sell the souls of men. And I believe that is pretty much a direct reference to our prison system. And it's a reference also to the fact that the attorneys throw us to the wolves too often. My field was used against us. One of our famous psychologists developed learned helplessness. At that point, I believe he took his research and his experiments underground, and I believe his stuff has been used across the world on all of us at large. The Tavistock Institute for Human Relations, they put us at each other's throats. The international bankers, oh my God, not only did they steal everything, they got us all divided, and they're basically the ones that control your FBI. And the FBI goes out there and starts fringe groups. They're the ones that form these weird groups, and they get the ball rolling, and then they roll back and claim that they're investigating the crimes, the crimes that they did, that they created themselves. You know, just like what happened with the governor in Michigan. The FBI started that bullshit. The FBI needs to be dismantled. And DHS took over our elections and ran all of those electoral machines. Don't worry about the damn Dominion voting machines. Worry about the federal government that very quietly took over the elections and manipulated all of that stuff. We don't have a democracy. The republic's been dead for a long time. If you want to understand what it takes to have a republic and how to get our republic back, watch my other videos on the other channel, Dr. John Taylor Kent. This is Awakening Israel. I really should have just focused on one and developing one, because I want to hit that 1,000 mark, and I'd like to be able to sell Bibles, actually. I don't want to sell the commercials. I don't like any of the commercials. I don't like the corporations. I don't think that we should allow corporations to exist. Our founders never would have allowed corporations, and they wouldn't have allowed corporations to do business with anyone inside the United States of America. But we had spoilers among us, and chief among those was Alexander Hamilton. You know, I always thought when Burr killed Hamilton, that was a horrible thing. Well, it turns out Hamilton was a Rothschild agent, and Hamilton wasn't his real name. He was one of the name changers, and he was a man who worshipped George Washington, but he worked for the Rothschilds, and he set up our banking system, and that's why we've had so much prosperity. He didn't invent that stuff. The Rothschilds invented that stuff. They gave us our stock exchange. They gave us the financial instruments that we come up with, and they eventually sold us a central bank. We took that away. Andrew Jackson was a great man. He went after the vipers, as he called them. And he was speaking more than figuratively about that. Anyway, we need to get rid of a lot of the institutions in this country, and we need to chop this government, all of these governments, including the state governments and the county governments, down to size. I think we should make public education illegal. I think we should go back we should take away all of the supports, no financial support from the central federal communist government, no oversight. And I think Texas in particular owes the nation and the world an apology for having taken over the books and given us all that liberal rubbish in the textbooks. And don't worry, Indiana owes the entire world an apology for the Kinsey report and the fraud that they allowed that perpetrated on the whole world. The guy came up with a bunch of stuff showing and claiming that we were a bunch of perverts. He was the pervert, and he was undermining the morality of the country. And Hugh Hefner funded the guy, and Indiana owes the world an apology for that and for the production of Mike Pence, who's going to go down in history as a bigger traitor than Benedict Arnold ever was. That man ought to be harassed everywhere. He should never have a moment's rest. He didn't do his job, and he threw the nation to the wolves. Why did he do that? They got him on video, buggering a little boy. Yeah, talk about a honey trap. It was a pedo trap. Well, good day. I'm going to get this up there, and I'm going to switch over to my other channel. We're going to talk about how to get this republic back again. Yahweh bless.